Salt declares that this place belongs to God. The real question is, are you using what is already in your hand? Are you treating salt like just another seasoning, or as the spiritual tool it truly is? You need to understand why God connected salt to authority, and how taking back any ground begins with taking back your environment, even in the most unexpected spots. What you are about to hear next might change the way you see every room you enter. Why did God command salt to be used in every offering? Why not honey? Why not herbs or spices from the land? Because salt was never just about taste. It was about purity. It was about preservation. It was about lasting covenant. When God said, "Put salt in the offering," He meant, I want this promise to be sealed forever. Salt does not just improve flavor. It preserves. It holds back decay. It keeps what is clean from becoming unclean. There are times when something that looks small or ordinary, like a little pinch of salt placed in a surprising spot, can open the way for divine power. It is not about superstition or magic. It is about knowing the spiritual meaning behind it. Salt was never a normal thing to God. It was holy, full of power, and a sign of promise. When you connect your simple actions with God's spiritual laws, things begin to move in the unseen world. Get ready, because what you are about to hear could change the atmosphere around you forever. Most people think salt is only for cooking or adding taste. They see it as something common. But what if I told you that what we call common is actually very special in God's kingdom? In the Bible, salt was never only for flavor. It was a symbol of purity, preservation, and covenant. It was a divine sign, a sacred message. God called it salt of the covenant not once, but many times in His word. Why did He say it so much? Why did He tell the Israelites to include it in every offering? Because salt was never meant to stay in the kitchen. It was created as a spiritual key. Salt stood for a holy agreement, a bond between God and His people. It preserved what was holy and destroyed what was corrupt. That is why when Elisha healed the waters of Jericho, he did not use oil or fire. He used salt. And he did not just throw it anywhere. He went right to the source of the problem, because God does not fix things on the surface. He goes to the root. He gives us wisdom to do the same. So when you place salt in areas that are physically dirty, like a toilet or drain, it might seem odd to a natural mind. But in the spirit, you are using a heavenly truth. You are saying, let this place be made pure. You are not just cleaning physically. You are inviting spiritual purity into that space. When you do this, you are taking spiritual control. You are reminding every dark force that you belong to the King of Kings. And anything that tries to pollute your home, your family, or your life must leave, because salt breaks cycles. Salt changes the atmosphere. Salt declares that this place belongs to God. The real question is, are you using what is already in your hand? Are you treating salt like just another seasoning, or as the spiritual tool it truly is? You need to understand why God connected salt to authority, and how taking back any ground begins with taking back your environment, even in the most unexpected spots. What you are about to hear next might change the way you see every room you enter. Why did God command salt to be used in every offering? Why not honey? Why not herbs or spices from the land? Because salt was never just about taste. It was about purity. It was about preservation. It was about lasting covenant. When God said, put salt in the offering, He meant, I want this promise to be sealed forever. Salt does not just improve flavor. It preserves. It holds back decay. It keeps what is clean from becoming unclean. So when you bring salt into your home or environment, you are not just adding something small. You are making a declaration. This home will not decay. My marriage will not fall apart. My purpose will not be spoiled, because salt carries the character of God. It is steady, lasting, and refuses to be changed by what is around it. That is why Jesus called His followers the salt of the earth. Not sugar, not spice, but salt. Because salt changes things quietly, even in small amounts. Here is the mystery. Salt does not make noise. It does not shout or draw attention. But everything shifts when it appears. That is what happens when you understand the power of what God has placed in your hands. You do not have to announce it or show it off. You just use it and watch change begin. So when you walk through your house and place salt in a toilet, in a drain, or in a hidden corner, you are not doing a ritual. You are following a spiritual law. You are inviting the preserving power of God into the very places where waste, destruction, or darkness try to hide. You are saying no more entry, no more corruption. This space belongs to God. Because salt does not just change taste, it changes purpose. But understand this, salt without spiritual authority has no power. You can pour it, pray over it, believe in it. But if you do not understand your right to use it, you will not walk in full victory. So the question becomes, do you know how to take back what is yours? Because in this moment, we are unlocking how to reclaim every inch of your territory. Even starting with something as simple as your own bathroom. You may ask, what does a toilet have to do with territory? What do drains, bathrooms, or water lines have to do with spiritual control? The answer is everything. The enemy does not always attack where it is easy to see. He goes where things are ignored. He hides in the places you do not check. The areas that seem dirty, ordinary, or unimportant. But the things you think are worthless might be the very places the enemy is using to spread pollution. Every home has gates, doors, windows, and entry points. But not all gates are physical. Some are spiritual, and the bathroom is one of the most symbolic parts of a home. It represents cleansing, a place where waste is released and toxins are flushed out. But if the enemy blocks what is meant to be removed, if he causes spiritual stagnation, backup, or pollution, he can corrupt the entire spiritual flow of the house. That is when your dreams feel delayed, your thoughts get cloudy, and your peace starts to fade. That is why it matters where you pour the salt. It is not about a porcelain bowl. It is about your ground, your territory. You are declaring that this gate belongs to God. No evil spirit can hide here. No curse can stay here. No darkness can enter through here. You are not just cleaning a toilet. You are cleansing a gateway. You are taking your space back from the inside out. And here is the powerful part. When you go to the smallest, quietest, or most hidden part of your home and release God's word through faith, that simple act carries spiritual weight. That is dominion. That is real warfare. That is faith in action. Not waiting for change, but commanding it. Do not be fooled by how small it seems. The areas you ignore are often where the enemy tries to sneak in. And if he can pollute one corner, he can affect the whole house. But when you go to that place with salt in your hand and authority in your mouth, you shut his access and open up heaven's flow. You are saying, this house, this family, this life, it all belongs to God. Here is where it gets even deeper. Salt does not only clean or restore, it also builds something strong. A covenant not just with your words, but through your actions. And in a moment, we will see how this covenant does not only break curses, it breaks long-standing cycles. The covenant of salt was never something God treated lightly. It was not a suggestion, it was a command. In the Old Testament, every grain offering had to include salt. Why? Because salt stood for something lasting, something that could not be broken or erased, a promise that would not be forgotten. It was God's way of saying, what I am about to do in your life will not fade away. It is sealed. Now, here is where it gets real. When you use salt with purpose, you are not just cleaning a space, you are activating a covenant. You are stepping into a spiritual agreement that declares no curse, no spell, and no darkness can survive here. Salt does not only stand for purity, it stands for protection, preservation, and lasting strength. So when you walk through your home with salt, praying and believing, you are renewing a holy contract that says, this house belongs to God. My mind belongs to God. My future is protected. But remember, curses do not always show up in loud or dramatic ways. Sometimes they hide in patterns, quiet struggles, repeated problems, or family habits that keep returning. That is why salt is powerful. It does not just break a curse, it breaks the cycle behind it. A covenant says, this ends with me. It says the pattern of divorce stops here. The curse of poverty stops here. The fear, the anxiety, the failure, it all stops now. When you hold salt in your hand, you are not just saying words. You are claiming your ground. You are letting the enemy know that every chain he tried to keep in your bloodline is broken. And where do you begin? Right where the enemy has been hiding. In the rooms no one sees. In the corners no one prays over. In the dark spots you have ignored. Because when you honor God in hidden places, he rewards you in visible ones. But there is another level we often overlook. Salt does not only clean or seal, it changes things. It turns what is bitter into something useful. And soon we will see how salt can turn toxic spaces into places of healing and blessing. In the book of 2 Kings, when the people told Elisha that their city's water was bitter and caused death, he did not lay hands or use oil. He asked for salt. Then he poured it right into the spring, the source of the problem. When the salt touched the water, everything changed. The land was healed. What was once bitter became sweet. What once brought death now brought life. That was not just a story. It was a divine example, a spiritual law in motion. Bitterness, whether in your home, your heart, or your habits, cannot be fixed from the surface. You have to go to the source, the root, the starting point of what has been poisoning things. When you apply salt there in faith, in prayer, in understanding, God steps in. He begins to turn what was toxic into something that can hold his presence again. Maybe the bitterness did not begin with you. Maybe it came through your family, through betrayal or years of pain. But like the waters of Jericho, it does not matter how long it has been bitter. Once salt is applied with faith, God can reverse it in an instant. That is why it is not strange to put salt in a toilet or to bless your drains, your water lines, and your pipes. It is not superstition, it is submission. It is choosing to bring a spiritual truth into your physical world and watching God heal what looked impossible. And here is what is amazing. When you deal with bitterness at its source, healing does not just touch you, it flows through your whole house. The air feels lighter, the tension breaks, the unseen battles lose their grip. What once carried pain now carries peace. But here is a question you must ask yourself. What happens after cleansing? Once the bitterness is gone, what is next? Because cleansing without protection can leave the door open again. And in the next moment, we will see why your next step must be a declaration of spiritual authority and how salt plays a key role in protecting your atmosphere. There are some things in God's kingdom that only happen through action. Not just shouting, not just singing, not even just praying, but doing. Faith is real only when it is expressed. That is why God often gives instructions that seem strange to human thinking. Build an ark when there is no rain. March around walls instead of fighting. Dip in a muddy river to get healed. And yes, even sprinkle salt in a toilet to reclaim your home. Why? Because physical actions unlock spiritual truths. When you obey a divine instruction, even if it seems small or strange, you are not only doing something in the natural, you are agreeing with something in the spirit. You are saying, God, I do not need to understand it. I just need to obey it. And that kind of obedience moves heaven. It breaks demonic patterns. It opens the way for God's power to work in your life. So when you pour salt, you are not performing a ritual. You are declaring reality. You are saying, this is holy ground. This space is set apart for God. No darkness, no curse, no evil can stay here. And when your declaration is backed by obedience, everything shifts, because the spiritual word does not respond to feelings. It responds to authority. And authority comes through obedience. The enemy wants you to laugh at small actions or ignore spiritual instructions, because he knows the moment you act in faith, his power is broken. His hold is gone. His right to stay is removed. That is why salt is powerful. It is not just a symbol. It is a statement. It says, I know who I am in God. I know the authority I carry. And I know that every act of obedience sends a message in the unseen world. But that is only the beginning. Once you have acted, once you have reclaimed and cleansed, you must now dedicate setting the space apart for God's presence. There is a difference between removing darkness and filling the space with light. And in the next moment, we will uncover how to do that. Cleanse, consecrate, and take control over every hidden place the enemy tried to touch. Every time God enters a space, the first thing he does is purify it. Before the blessing, there is always cleansing. Before the anointing, there is always preparation. God is holy, and whatever carries his presence must be separated, made clean, and guarded. That includes your surroundings, your home, and every room you walk through daily, even the ones you have never prayed over. Darkness does not need an invitation to enter where light has been forgotten. Spiritual pollution does not ask to come in. It waits for your neglect. But here is the truth. You do not have to stay under heaviness, confusion, delay, or oppression. You already have the tools. You already have authority. And one of the most powerful tools many people forget is salt. Salt has the strength to purify, not only in the natural, but also in the spirit. When you put salt in certain areas, like a drain or toilet, places that represent waste and flow, you are declaring this is no longer an open gate for the enemy. This area is now sealed, purified, and claimed for the kingdom. You are not just cleaning, you are breaking cycles. You are silencing wrong voices. You are closing down patterns of fear, depression, and confusion that try to live in the walls of your home. But cleansing by itself is not enough. You must also consecrate. To consecrate means to set something apart, to dedicate it as holy. After cleansing with salt, speak life over the place. Pray, worship, declare out loud. This atmosphere is no longer neutral. It belongs to God. No unclean spirit can come back here. Nothing impure can stay here, because what you allow will continue. But what you confront must bow. And when your actions align with your words, the spiritual world has to respond. You are building boundaries. You are drawing a bloodline. You are declaring this house is off limits to the enemy. And there is more. After cleansing and consecrating, there is another level: dominion. It is not enough to break the curse. You must take control. Dominion is not an option. It is a command. From the beginning, God said, have dominion, not only in the temple or the church, but over the whole earth. That includes your home, your hidden places, and every corner the enemy tried to occupy. When you use salt not just as seasoning, but as a symbol of your spiritual authority, you are not reacting, you are reclaiming. Salt is not only for keeping things, it is for taking ground. When you move through your house with salt in your hand, you are not doing a ritual. You are making a bold spiritual declaration. You are saying, this room is under divine order. This home is ruled by heaven's authority. Every curse, every dark force hiding in secret places, your time is over. When you declare dominion, you do not whisper it, you enforce it. Remember, territory is spiritual before it is physical. You do not take ground by chance. You take it by purpose. Pour salt where the enemy tried to build strongholds. Walk your floors. Speak over your walls. Declare over your drains and corners. This ground no longer belongs to darkness. It belongs to God. And when you do this in faith, everything begins to shift. Not just in the natural, but in the unseen world. Every place your feet step, God has already given to you. But you must step with faith, awareness, and bold action. You cannot conquer what you ignore. You cannot rule over what you avoid. Salt becomes a witness, a spiritual marker that says this place belongs to heaven. Never underestimate the small things. Do not laugh off what seems simple to others, because what looks ordinary in your hand becomes supernatural when God breathes on it. Salt is just a tool, but obedience is the power that activates it. So what are you waiting for? Take the salt. Take your authority. Reclaim your space. The curse is broken. The air is clean. The ground is made holy. And now you must walk in that holiness every day. Do not think the work is done after one act of obedience. Spiritual ground must be maintained. Just as you clean your home naturally again and again, you must also continue to stand guard in the spirit. The enemy is always looking for a way back in, for an open door he can use. But when you make a habit of applying spiritual truth, you build a wall of fire around your life. Your home becomes a fortress that darkness cannot penetrate. This is not about living in fear, but about living in constant awareness of your authority. You have been given the power to decide what stays and what goes. So decide every morning that your home will be a place of peace. Decide that your mind will be a place of clarity. Decide that your family will be a place of blessing. And use the tools God has given you to enforce that decision. Salt is one of those tools, a simple reminder of a powerful covenant. But do not stop with salt. Let it be a starting point that leads you into deeper obedience. Let it open your eyes to other instructions God may have for you. Other ways He wants you to reclaim your territory. Perhaps it is anointing oil at the doorposts. Perhaps it is worship music in the hallway. Perhaps it is speaking scriptures over your children's rooms. God has many ways to establish His presence. The key is to listen and to act. Do not let the business of life make you forget the battle for your atmosphere. The moments you set aside for spiritual maintenance are the moments that protect all your other moments. When you spend 5 minutes praying over a room, you are saving yourself from days of struggle and confusion. It is a wise investment. So take the salt today, but also take the time, take the authority, and take the promise that God is with you in this. He does not give you a task without also giving you the grace to complete it. You are not alone in your home. The same God who told Elisha to use salt is telling you to use what is in your hand. He is with you. His power is with you, and His angels are assigned to you. So move with confidence. Cleanse that corner you have been ignoring. Consecrate that space where arguments always happen. Take dominion over the area where fear likes to linger. You have the authority to do it. And as you do, you will feel the shift. You will notice the peace becomes thicker. The joy becomes easier. The sense of God's presence becomes your new normal. This is your inheritance. This is your right as a child of God. Do not let the enemy steal it from you any longer. The battle may seem constant, but the victory is already yours. You are just enforcing what heaven has already declared. So rise up. Take your household back. Make it a beacon of light, a place of refuge, a center of God's power. Let everyone who walks in, even the unseen visitors from the spiritual realm, know immediately that this is a place where God lives. And watch as everything in your life begins to align with that holy reality. The curse is broken. The air is clean. The ground is holy. Now live like you believe it.